and we are live on the book club. So I would like to say hello to everyone, good evening, and welcome to Tracy Talks To. I am delighted to have Eve Smith, Mike Carey, and Stuart Turton with me tonight. We're going to be obviously chatting about their books and their publishing journeys and anything else that you want to ask us. The members of the book club are going to be online live shortly to ask us some questions, and hopefully we'll take those later. So we'll head over to you first, Eve. If you can just introduce yourself and excuse the noise, my son is in the fridge.
Okay, no problem. So I'm Eve Smith. My debut novel, The Waiting Rooms, came out last July, slap bang in the middle of the pandemic. And I came to writing quite late. I started off in alcoholic drinks, which I highly recommend, followed by environmental conservation, and then I hit writing. So that is me.
Thank you. Mike?
Hi, I'm Mike Carey, sometimes MR Carey, sometimes Adam Blake, but not very often. I write comics, I write novels, I write screenplays when I can get them. My current novel is Full of Coley, which is the third in a trilogy. That's probably enough to go on with, isn't it?
Thank you. And Stu, you might need to introduce yourself to people who did know you, have met you before, because you look slightly different.
Yes, I've grown a lockdown beard, and that is actually that's the most interesting piece of information about me, sadly. So I've got nothing more to add to that. I'm Stuart Turton. I wrote The Seven Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, and my most recent novel is The Devil in the Dark Water, and I have a beard. That's what I got for you. That's it.
Excellent. Thanks very much. Right, that's it. Good night and goodbye. Right. So obviously, Stu, you've written 2 books, and your third one, I'm presuming you're working on now. Mike, you've got quite a back catalogue of books, which we'll talk about shortly. And Eve, this is your debut novel.
Yes, just the one at the moment.
Well, at the moment, but I'm pretty sure that you're working hard on books 2, 3, and 4.
Oh, yes.
I want to talk about let's talk about your current book right now, because it's quite topical, really.
Yeah.
What genre would you say it comes under? Sort of dystopian, futuristic,
yeah.
sci-fi?
Yeah, dystopian, or also speculative thriller. I love all these genres. We can, throw them all around.
Absolutely.
And I must hold it up, otherwise Karen will literally kill me. So there we go. That's The Waiting Rooms.
And we will be giving away a couple of copies later on the book club. So keep your questions coming, anyone. Right, so tell us a little bit about it.
Okay, well, The Waiting Rooms is set during an antibiotic crisis. So basically, resistant infections are running rampant. Even a scratch from a pet can kill. And in order to try and stave off the crisis, a law is passed where no one over 70 gets access to new drugs. And if they get ill, they're sent to hospitals for the elderly called the waiting rooms. And the story follows Kate, who's a nurse in one of the waiting rooms, as she tries to find her elderly birth mother. But what she doesn't know is that someone else is looking for her too.
Ooh. I've had some fantastic feedback. I wish I had my notes on me. The Guardian said it was amazing. I mean, you've had some amazing, so you must be really pleased with that sort of feedback.
Yeah, no, I was, because I really wasn't sure how things were going to go. Now, reading a book about multiple pandemics in the middle of a pandemic can go one of 2 ways, right? Either everybody wants to read it or no one wants to touch it with a barge pole. But what I've found is that the people that have dared to go there, just to give themselves an even more frightening thing to contemplate, is it has resonated because there are a lot of parallels with COVID. Way more than I ever anticipated, actually. So it's been quite an interesting time for this one to come out.
When did you write the book?
Well, as it was my first, I had the classic tortuous journey to publication. So I first had the idea in 2015, actually, but it didn't get published, obviously, until last year. So I literally started then and then went through multiple edits and sort of, failures, more rejections. And then it got shortlisted for the Bridport Prize in 2017, which was a very necessary encouragement at that point because I was beginning to wonder if it was ever going to happen. And then the year after, I got my agent Harry, which is Stuart's agent too. And then the year after that, he sold it to Karen to Render Books. So that was amazing.
Wonderful, lovely. Mike, let's start with you. I mean, she says we. We're in the middle of a blog tour that some brilliant person has organised for you.
It's true.
It's the final book in a trilogy. Now, I've been pronouncing it completely wrong because I heard you talk about it just now. How do you pronounce it?
The books of Coley.
Coley.
Yeah.
Well, then I haven't been to. So this is a trilogy. Let's talk about this now. A lot of people, the reviewers who've obviously read the first two books are loving it. I haven't read it yet. Tell me why I should read it and what it's about.
It's a post-apocalyptic story, which I've done before, obviously. Girl with All the Gifts and Boy on the Bridge were also in that territory. This is different in that the apocalypse happened hundreds of years before the story starts. So Coley lives in a world that's sort of blighted by the damage that we've done to the biosphere. It's a world that's been radically changed, not just by climate crises and resource depletion, but also by the ham-fisted scientific efforts that were made to reverse those things. So he's also living with our mistakes. So there was a lot of genetic recombination to try to deal with the erosion of soil and the dying back of plant species. So in Coley's world, plants reproduce really, really fast, and they can take nutrients almost from anywhere, and a lot of them eat people. They don't particularly go out of their way to eat people, but they end up doing it. If you go into a forest and the sun shines, they use their phototropism to basically sort of twist around anything that's living and moving and crush it, and then they just absorb what's left of you as a sort of nice, nutritious match. So it's a pretty dark world. There's not very many people left. The people who are left live in tiny, isolated communities. And the real thing, the real sort of killer is there's too small a gene pool. So the community is getting smaller and smaller every year. Fewer and fewer live births, fewer viable births. And Coley, the main character, is kind of put in a position where he's first made to understand the root causes of all this, and then he's given a chance to do something about it. But it involves inevitably a sort of quest across the blighted landscape of post-apocalyptic England, spelt with an I.
Okay, thank you. You're also very well known for your previous books, The Girl with All the Gifts, and this one, Someone Like Me, looks lovely. And then you've got Fellside, and then you've got, I believe, is there a follow-up? The Boy on the Bridge.
Boy on the Bridge.
Yeah, there you go. And you've also had one of your books made into a film, which must be very exciting.
It was wonderful, yeah. It wasn't exactly the book being made into a film. I did the book and the film at the same time. There was a short story that I did for an anthology. Charlene Harris and Tony Kellner used to do these themed anthologies once a year, and the theme was always something really banal and everyday and normal sounding, like home improvements or family vacations. And the year that I said I would do a story for them, it was school days. So I invented the character of Melanie, this little girl, this very, very earnest, intelligent, brave little girl who is also a zombie, a flesh-eating zombie, and if she gets too close to you, she will eat your brains, but she'll feel terrible about it afterwards.
A zombie with a conscience.
A zombie with a heart of gold. She's a girl you'd be proud to have as your daughter, except for the eating you part, which is awkward in some ways. So I did the short story, and I couldn't put the world down. I just felt like there was more to that character, that voice, that world. And so I persuaded Orbit to let me out of a contract that I was in to do a Dan Brownian conspiracy thriller. Instead, let me write Girl with All the Gifts. And at the same time, I met this amazing independent producer, Camille Gatin. And that was a meeting that changed my life. She's just the most awesome person. And we were working on a movie together that fell apart under us. And at a certain point, she turned around and said, what else have you got? And I said, I've got this. I showed her the short story, and she knew a director, Colin McCarthy, who was desperate to do a movie using abandoned urban landscapes, like ruined urban landscapes. And so it kind of like it slotted into that sort of that long felt want of his, and we made a film, which was great.
It is quite rare for a film to do the book justice, but it really did work. It worked amazingly. I thought the casting was fantastic.
Oh yeah,
I just thought
we were very, very lucky with our Melanie. So Senya Nanawa had never been in a feature film before, and in that film she's on screen for I think 108 of 110 minutes. It absolutely depends on her performance, and she just knocked it out of the park.
Absolutely. Now, Father Christmas over there. This little beauty. Oh, my camera's over there. There you go. Does that work? No, that looks even worse. Okay, The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. Not to be confused with The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo.
Although everybody does. So
because
that's
you are
fine.
really in for a shock if you're expecting one and you get the other.
Or alternatively, if you're the nice old man who came to a festival bearing a copy of 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, the 7.5 Deaths, which is the US title of it, and the 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, thinking they are a trilogy. And
Yes.
which she had bought very much for his daughter because I think he thought because she liked 7. She either liked 7 husbands or she liked 7 deaths, and he thought he'd get all the rest for her.
And you look just like Taylor Jenkins Reid, I have to say, especially with the beard.
Yeah, no, it's me and Taylor just interchanged. So I'm writing her next book. She's on mine.
The eighth husband.
We've got a little factory going. It's going to be great, honestly. I'm going to jig a little bit of murder into her romance and vice versa, honestly.
Now,
I can't see what's going to go wrong.
I read this book when it came out, and I read it on a cruise. I don't know why I threw that in there, but just what I meant was I was on holiday, which was a good time to read it because bloody hell, you need to concentrate.
Yeah.
Blooming hell. I mean, seriously, this is not a light read where you can put it down and walk around and do something else. You have got to. It was complicated to read. Was it complicated to write?
No, it's dead easy. I mean, it's 8 hosts, 1 repeating day. Every single second of it has to fit into that. And then it has an Agatha Christie plot with body swapping and the time loop. No, it's easy. Honestly, it was fine. I was jet black before I started that book, and look at the state of this now. This is what writing that book has done. It was, do you know what? Like, I've just finished I finished my second book recently. I'm starting my third one now. It just turns out writing books is really difficult. Whatever you're going to do, I plan my books meticulously anyway. I need them down on paper in some sort of order before I ever start. So I just realised I find writing books really, really difficult. And I've always said that I would have thought writing 7 Deaths is my first one. If it had been my second one, I probably would never have started it. But actually, no, I realise that's a lie. Just a book is such a mountain to climb that it doesn't matter kind of what the content of it is. It's so hard to get to the end. And I write really stupidly thick books, like the 130,000 words. Why would I do that? Why? Every page of writing is a torment to me, and I write 500 plus of them. It makes no sense, Tracy. I don't know what's going on. So the next book is going to be a tight, 50,000 words. I think so. Yeah, it's a brochure. That's what I need to do.
So, I mean, let's just talk about your first book because it did very, very well. Let's say for your first book, it did very, very well. You got the Costa Book Award winner 2018. I don't know. Does that mean you get free coffee? I don't know what actually that means.
No, I didn't even get a trophy. It's very sad.
Well, that's disgusting. I mean, honestly.
To be fair, they do give you a check, which kind of compensates for it a little bit. So you can buy coffee and you can buy yourself a trophy with the check. So maybe that's the thinking. They're leaving it up to you, really. It's open-ended.
I mean, I'm just reading on the back. Sarah Pinborough, who we love, she thought it was darkly comic, mind-blowingly twisty, and a cast of fantastically odd characters. This is a locked room mystery like no other. She's quite good at this, isn't she? She should write more. I mean, that's a pretty good quote, isn't it?
Yeah, I think she's going to go far. That's my feeling.
I think she'll do all right. I don't know. She'll do all right. Remarkable, mesmerising, the Financial Times. Prepare to have your brain fried and your mind blown. This is almost like the girl with all the gifts. She would have fried your brain if she'd read this. How difficult is it to have such a successful first book when you're then bringing out your second book? Is there a lot of pressure on you?
No, there's none whatsoever. I genuinely don't get that. Like, the pressure is when I write my first book, as like any first novelist, most first novelists will attest, I gave up a lot to write my first novel, and I was trying to do it in my spare time while having a full-time job. I was trying to do all these things, and it was incredibly difficult to juggle it all. And then Seven Deaths is successful, someone gives you an award, your publisher's like, we don't care, go and do what you want. And then you're free to write your second book. That book made me financially secure enough to write a second book. So that pressure went away. Then I just sat at home and didn't have to do another job or another two jobs, as the case was. I just sat about and wrote a book, and it was the most gloriously delightful experience of my entire life. Apart from the fact that I had a baby at the same time, which was the most
That's a
ridiculously
miracle.
stupid experience.
You personally, that's a miracle.
Yeah, no, came out the beard. So I attest it may not be my baby. I could have just been walking down the street and hoovered it up in this thing. I don't know, but a baby arrived in my life. So, and that was difficult. That was very, very hard. But writing the book was fine. Yeah. So I find writing torturous. I find it a quite difficult process. So one book to the next. I think the pressure is a thing that you put on yourself. So my pressure is write a good book. Make sure that it all holds together. Make sure that it's consistent. Make sure it's doing what I want it to do. And then hopefully it does what the reader wants it to do. But I can't worry about what the readers want, because then they're just going to be, there's loads of them, and they're just going to get mad and ruin everything.
You can't please everyone all the time, as we know. I'm going to read out some of the comments that are coming in. Saffron Gary says that she loves your anthology, Mike. Juliet Butler just wants to say hello. She loves your book, Stu. John Neal, he wants to... Oh, hold on.
Okay, what's John want to do? I'm a bit worried now.
No, because normally he asks another one. He's thrown me. What's the first book you remember reading that made you think, I want to be an author? Interesting. Eve, can you think of that one?
Probably would be a Stephen King one. I used to love all of the really scary Stephen King ones, like Salem's Lot, something like that. Yeah.
Mike?
My gateway drug for genre fiction was Enid Blyton. It was the Magic Faraway Tree and the Wishing Chair. But I think the first novels that I read that made me think I want to try this were probably the Eternal Champion books of Michael Moorcock.
Sorry, I lost you back. Can I say that one again?
The Michael Moorcock's Eternal Champion, Corum, Julian the Skull, Dorian Hawkmoon, Eric Andre, which they're written to an incredibly rigid formula. It's always a quest for a magical artifact with the aid of a different magical artifact. And for a long time, I thought that's what fantasy was. You know, if you weren't looking for a moon sword, you were nobody.
Stu, who was the first book you remember reading, thinking, I want to read that? Or, I want to be an author?
Mine was quite specific. It was Agatha Christie, and it was because I read them all between about 8 and 10 years of age. And when I got to the final book, they've been part of my life for like 2 years. And I was like, so I want another one. And I'd read everything. Like, I'd literally cleared her out. And my mum was like, she's dead. There will be no more. And I'm like, this makes no sense to me. What do you mean dead? It's like, so we had an entire epiphany conversation about death. And then once I got through that and realised that death meant there would be no more Agatha Christie books, I was like, well, that can't be allowed to stand. This doesn't feel right to me. So at that point, I was like, well, if I can learn to write them, there'll always be more of them. So I had that childish, and then that planted my flag in my future. And little did I know that Sophie Hannah would turn up and carry on writing them. So if she had, I'd never have this career because I wouldn't need to bother, quite frankly.
Vanessa wants to know, Eve, where did you get the idea for your book, The Waiting Rooms?
Oh, well, I'm a bit of a closet nerd. I do love my research, and I read this fact about antibiotic resistance, as you do, and it was back in 2015 when I first got the idea, and it said that 700,000 people die every year from resistant infections now. And it's probably a lot more than that, actually, because that was 5 years ago. And this was the real killer figure. 10 million a year will die by 2050 unless we sort it out. And I thought, why is nobody writing about this? The World Health Organization calls it the silent pandemic, which I think that is great. I've used that a lot all over my blogs and stuff, because because it's not like a massive sort of huge viral apocalyptic like shoe-in over a short period of time. It doesn't get headlines, but the reality is it is out there. It's getting worse. And it's only really quite recently being tracked effectively so that we actually even can quantify just how dangerous it is. And it's pretty scary when you read some of these case stories from people that have suffered with them, all different ages. They have absolutely nearly died, and many of them have, and they struggle even now to get on with their lives because it's really bad. If you get a serious multi-resistant infection, you've got a big problem. Well, yeah.
Can I ask so we take my daughter's 3, so obviously we're in the doctor every 3 days, and our doctors won't. They would like the NHS now is not giving antibiotics out for a load of things. Is this right? Like because
absolutely, yeah. Because I remember when my daughter was young, back then, that we're talking 2005-06. I wanted her to have an antibiotic, right? She had this cough, this respiratory thing. I thought, I want her to have an antibiotic because otherwise she's not going to get better. And of course, most of those are viral and it's a complete waste of time. So actually, this whole thing, they've done a really good job in this country of changing that sort of framework and that sort of expectation that you go to the doctor and you get a pill and now you're going to be all right. Actually, no, don't ask for the pill, because if you get the pill and then actually you could be a lot worse off. So it is changing, but it's like trying to turn a steam tank around. And COVID has not helped because there's been a whole load of antibiotics going down in hospitals for secondary infections. And so it's probably not going to look very pretty when we come out of this.
It's farming as well, isn't it? They're used massively in intensive farming. They just put, like in fish farms, they put the antibiotics in the water.
Yes, the EU is actually really good on this, but the States is a shocker. Well over, I can't remember, it's something like 70% of their antibiotics go to animals. So you're stuffing your burgers down and getting a nice few resistant bugs in there with your little burger and bap. I wrote a little flash fiction about that.
I can't believe you just killed burgers for me, Eve. I'm so sad.
Oh man, there's always veggie burgers, Stu. It'll go with your beard.
Louise, I'm changing the subject because I like my burgers. Louise Beach says, hello, I loved The Waiting Rooms by Eve.
Oh, bless you. Hi, Louise. I'm reading hers at the moment, by the way.
Ooh. Oh, I can't wait, but mine hasn't arrived yet.
Yes, reading that right now, Louise. Love it.
Right, so this probably won't apply to you so much, Eve. Emma Christie, her question is, do any of you hide any little Easter eggs in your books that only a few readers might find or notice? And I'm presuming this is really to Mike, because you've written quite a few books.
I rickrolled the audience in the first Coley book. There's a scene where Coley comes into possession of an ancient, prelapsarian media player, and at someone's wedding he plays "Never Gonna Give You Up," but he's never heard it before, so he just describes the lyrics for us, and you gradually realise what it is that he's talking about.
Stu, do you think you might do some?
Yeah, there's some all the way through. So there's a reference in my second book, Devil, to Seven Deaths. And then the thing I always do, well, I've probably written two, but the thing I always do in my 50-year career is I always give the entire plot away in one line somewhere within the first third of the book. So some character will always just say exactly what's happening, but it'll be out of context and it will be referring to something else, but they will absolutely tell you what's going on in the book.
Oh, I'm going to look for that. That's it. That's going down.
Find that and then not bother reading.
Yeah, exactly. If you do, that would
Saving
be, it's a
hours.
wonderful, just a nice game for people to play. But you've got to wade through, like, again, 130,000 words. The first third of the book is like the size of anybody else's book. So you still got to read the bastard thing.
I also,
Is that your new tagline on the Devil? You still got to read the bastard thing
I've got a t-shirt. That's when I go to festivals. Yeah.
when they let you in.
Yeah.
This is the question that John Neal normally asks, which is why he threw me. That he tries to support the local bookshops around the country during lockdown. Good for you, John. Well done. And wants to know, do you have any local bookshops near you that sells signed copies of your books that he can order? Eve?
Oh yeah, absolutely. They've been amazing actually. So I've got there's Blackwell's in Oxford. There is Waterstones in Whitney, and Jaffe and Neal in Chipping Norton.
Lovely. Mike?
I'm afraid not. No, there used to be 3 independent bookshops in Barnet when I first moved here. Now we've just got a Waterstones, and they're not the slightest bit interesting, sadly.
What?
We'll sort that out. Whereabouts do you live, Mike? We'll all come round with some books to get signed.
Yeah.
Barnet. Actually, though,
Did you just say in Barnet?
Yeah.
You're round the corner to me.
How are you then?
Bushy.
Yeah. It's like that.
Oh my God, that's so funny. Right. So I'll come and pick up some signed books from you when lockdown's over, and then I'll just give them out. Oh, I didn't know.
There was a bookshop in Stevenage that were really proud that, that there was a sort of zombie, a mass sort of zombie horde scene in Stevenage and gathered all the gifts. And they had a big window display, zombies in Stevenage.
Brilliant.
Well, maybe we should get you together with Chorley Book Club, Chorley Books,
Yeah.
Chorley Wood Book Club, bookshop.
Definitely up for it.
They're very nice there. Stu, where do you live? It just sounds like I'm now your stalker.
I live in Berkhamsted in Hertfordshire, just outside
Oh, you're
London.
we're all Hert. Well, you're Barnet's London, isn't it? Well, I'm okay, Bushy, Hertfordshire. So do you go to Costco ever?
Me?
Yeah,
Why is that? Was that where you live?
in Costco. Yeah, just between the toilet rolls.
Yeah. I just set up camp. No, I've not been to the Costco, I'm afraid. We've missed out on that particular pleasure.
Well, I had Matt Arledge on the other week as well. He lives round the corner in St Albans. He's never been to Costco.
Does he live in a Savour or a B&M or something? Where does he live?
St Albans, in a nice St Albans.
Right, okay.
But why have you never? I don't know why. I can't. Anyway, let's get back to.
I feel like I've been accused of something because I live in Berkhamsted. I don't know what I've done.
No, you just live near me. You just live near me, so I'll come and pick up your next book as well. Right, let's get on to. Hang on, I'm just seeing if there's got more questions. Okay, Monono. Does that make sense? Monono is Juliet's favourite character in Coley. Hold on, I'm just they're coming in all the time. They're different. Oh, they're not coming in order on my phone, so that's why I'm getting a bit confused. Right, okay. So let's talk about how you got published, how you became published, and what you did in your prior life, so your civilian life. Eve?
Well, before I sort of embarked on the mad fantasy of getting published, I was really naive about it. So I was working for an environmental organisation, which I loved, which funded science all over the world, science projects, and got people and companies together to fund the work. And I started going to this creative writing group in the theatre in Chipping Norton, and I realised just how much I loved writing. And I used to write a lot when I was a kid. Used to write stuff all the time. My poor parents used to post it off to unsuspecting relatives. But then, you hit job and you work, when you're doing started off in corporate, just all of that goes out the window and you've only kind of got room for all the content that you're having to generate. So I didn't write at all. And so when I joined this group, I remembered just how much I loved writing. And I thought in my total naive brain that maybe I would just go and write a novel in a year and get it published, and that would be all right, wouldn't it? So I said, that's it, I'm going to write a novel, I'm going to get published. And of course it isn't quite that easy, but that was how I started, and that was back in 2013. And of course whatever I was writing didn't get published. But then I got the idea for the waiting rooms, and I had a lot of support on that almost straight away. So whilst it was still a tortuous journey, and I went, you know, did all the wrong things and sent it out too early and was really impatient and all of these things. Eventually, I got there through persistence and stubbornness and family support, I think, and alcohol probably. So yeah, so I got there.
Yeah, alcohol tends to feature quite heavily in many authors somehow and publishers. Somehow.
God,
I don't know why.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, so I got there in 2000. Well, last year it came out. Still doesn't feel real actually. So yes, that was my little route.
Mike, now you've also had. I'm sorry, but I'm trying to look for my notes. But you've got an interesting past. You've got an interesting past. It sounds terrible, that doesn't it? So tell me about your history. Tell me about your past a bit.
Well, like Eve, there was never a time when I didn't tell stories in one form or another. As a kid, I used to steal exercise books from my school. Not a thing I'm particularly proud of. I just write these things that I thought were novels, and I carried on doing that through my teens and early 20s. And I got to a point where I started submitting them to publishers. But they were not really novels. They were just like big, shapeless, pulsating bags of story. They didn't have any real structure to them. And they would just be like 700, 800 pages long. I send them off and I get rejection slips that said things like, you should try writing this as a novel. And then I started doing comics journalism, it's a grandiose way of saying I started doing reviews for fanzines. And through that, I started meeting people who were working in the indie comics scene. And so I started submitting ideas to that. And I did some stuff for British indie publishers. And then I met people who were doing the same thing in America. And I did that for about a decade, working for Malibu and Caliber.
Hold on. We've got a bit of feedback there. Hold on a second. 1 minute. I'm not sure if that's... Can you hear that feedback?
A little bit, yeah.
Hold on.
Like a kettle.
We're good. Malibu, we've got a joint thing there then, Mike, because I worked for Diageo, so I worked on Southern Comfort and all kinds of exciting things, Baileys and, you know, Smirnoff. Oh, yeah.
Whereas Stu just drinks it.
So this was a small press that started doing their own superhero universe in the early 90s and got just big enough that Marvel noticed them and bought them out. This was a common theme when I was writing in comics. I'd work for an indie publisher, and as soon as they hired me, they'd go bankrupt. What Jonah did to shipping, I used to do. But then, then at a certain point, I got a gig at DC writing Lucifer. Writing comics is a really good discipline because you've got 22 pages, or these days more often 20 pages, and you've got to tell your story and get out. If you run out of pages before you run out of story, then you're stuck. So coming back to writing prose from there, I was able to kind of I was able to do structure in a more sort of conscious and consistent way.
Emma Christie has just said she was entering Mike's name on Amazon as the question was read out. Rick rolling your readers, evil genius, she's sold. I've forgotten what the question was now. Oh yeah, sorry, Stu. Oh no, sorry, Mike. Just going back to you quickly because this might be the only time in my life my two boys are actually impressed with me. Because you have written for both DC and Marvel, haven't you?
Yeah.
Tell them about, because this is the only time their kids are actually going to watch this. What can you tell me about that?
I came into comics at a really, really opportune time. There were three great British writers who broke into American comics all at the same time, or more or less at the same time. Alan Moore, Neil Gaiman, and Grant Morrison. And they were all, sort of insane geniuses. And so there was a brief moment, when American editors thought that there was an entire island of Alan Moores here. And all they had to do was come over with a fishing net every couple of years and scoop up a few more. So I sort of rode in on the back of that. And I got to do a lot of work in Neil Gaiman's Sandman universe, which was wonderful because it was... the idea of the Kuhnian revolution, the idea that a template will hold for a certain time. There's a way of telling a story, or a sort of scientific orthodoxy, and then someone will come along with a big idea and turn everything upside down, and then everybody will copy that. that will become the new template or the new orthodoxy. I think Neil Gaiman's Sandman created a new form of comic storytelling, which was novelistic. You could tell a story for 7, 8, or 9 years, and it would all be the same story, just split up into different sized arcs. So I just basically pastiched Neil until I found my own voice, which was great.
Talking of your own voice, your audio isn't as loud as everybody else's. Are you able to switch it up a bit? Did you see that seamless plug? I'm sorry, but that was pretty good. That little seamless that was.
I will try.
Okay, well, you fiddle around with that, because we're just going to move on to Stu. Magnificent beard, says Dave Graham.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you. I hope you're also sporting a luxurious mane.
Right. So, Stu, you were just saying, what did you do in your real world? What did you do in your real job?
Did all of them. I did every job. All the shit ones, I should say. None of the good ones. I did all the shit ones. Because I used to travel all the time. I thought my entire life would be me traveling and doing shit jobs to pay for traveling. And so what have I done? I've worked on goat farms. I've cleaned toilets in private airports. I've picked fruit. Worked in bookshops. That was a good job, and the rest of the shit jobs. Worked in call centres. I've written for Spanish newspapers. I just pick a weird ass job, and I've probably done it somewhere. Best job I ever had was on the goat farm. I used to drive around on a quad bike in Australia in the outback with a shotgun and shoot in the air to scare away marauding camels that were going to knock down the goat farm fences. That was my best ever. To this day, I've not come close to that job. So I did that, and then eventually I realised that I was getting old, and that you can't carry on doing that, because you can't. There's no way you want to be the 40-year-old guy in the dorm. You know, everyone knows that guy. You don't want to be that guy, because you talk about that guy behind that guy's back. And I was talking about me. You know, people are like, "Who's that guy in the dorm?" And I'm like, "I think that might be me." So I got a job, and I came back to London. I became a technology journalist, and then I became a travel journalist, which was amazing. I moved to Dubai. I was a teacher in Shanghai. I did that as well. That was a weird job. And then I just wanted to write a book. That's just what I wanted to do at the back of my head. So I was always noodling around with it. There was always 10 other things happening like everybody else. And then just one day, I built myself the perfect life. I was living in Dubai in a 30th floor apartment. I just met the love of my life, who's now my wife. We were travel journalists.
You were going to say, I've just met the love of my life, and then I married my wife.
Yeah, that sounds like an old 80s Bernard Manning joke, doesn't it? Yeah, and everything was going swimmingly, and I decided to smash it all down and come back to London to write this stupid book. So we ended up moving away from our beautiful apartment and our beautiful travel job to a flat in London above a children's nursery, like literally above it. You walk into the children's nursery, go up the stairs, and that's where we live. And I wrote every day to the smell of like dirty nappies and screaming children, which is, you know, ideal. And I did that, and that was the 7 deaths, and that's kind of how that happened. So it was a big, horrible, terrible thing to be like, well, I believe in this book so much, and if I don't write it, I'm going to go completely insane. So I'm going to just give up everything and throw everything away and just concentrate on doing this. And I was doing freelance journalism, so I was like, you know, I was earning 800 quid a month or something, just taking articles to buy beer and pay the taxman and pay my bills. And then once I had those, I would stop. So 3 days a week I was a freelance journalist, and the rest of it I was writing this novel. And we were just dirt poor in London, which is no place to be dirt poor. And yeah, that was it. And then thankfully 7 Deaths did well, because if it hadn't, I'd be divorced and living under a bridge, which it looks like I am, but I'm actually not.
Has it been optioned yet?
7 Deaths? Tracy, where have you been? Yeah, it's been...
I'm terrible. I mean, a lot of books have been optioned, but nothing ever happens.
Yeah, it's been made by Netflix, you big crazy cuckoo lady. It's, yeah, they're casting it right now.
No!
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Oh, are you involved?
Hell no, I don't want to go back to that fucking misery pit. I did it once. I can't ever envisage trying to do that again, let alone for... Like, the last thing that book needs, in my mind, is to be made shorter, and that's what a script has to be, right? Like, so I just cannot envisage trying to wrangle that. I'm going to leave that to someone smarter and just carry on writing books, because the last thing I ever want to do, as we alluded to earlier, I do find writing quite tough, and a part of that is because I get bored very quickly, and I think if I had to go back to the same material and try and rejigger it into something else, I would get bored immensely immediately. So, no, I'll let someone else do it.
Sorry, I'm really sorry. I missed this about Netflix. So have you watched Sarah Pinborough's Netflix?
No.
Have you read the book?
No.
Nobody's read the book or seen it yet?
I've read the book.
Disappointing. Oh, now, Mike, we've lost you completely on voice.
Oh,
Have we?
I haven't. I can hear him.
I can hear him.
testing.
Who's
Okay.
that?
Can you hear him loud and clear? Because he's a little bit faint for me. You might have to just shout.
I'll put the microphone up as high as it will go. Sorry,
Okay.
I've read the book, but I haven't seen the show.
Right. And then, of course, John Mars's book, The One, which is now on Netflix. So are you worried about what they might do to your book then, or you just don't? You've got the money, you don't care. You can afford a barber now.
I clearly can't, can I? No, because it's an adaptation. I have this really, again, I find it bizarre, the people who are just like, well, if it's an adaptation, somehow it's ruined the book, or the book is then destroyed and they can never go back to the book. It makes no sense. Like, every time a reader reads the book, they picture it in their head, and a director and a screenwriter are just doing that with a bigger budget. So it's just their version of, but you've still got yours, you read it, you can still think about it. Like, it doesn't bother me at all. And the only thing I hope is that they take huge liberties with the book and they take it in their own direction and mess about with it, because that's the opportunity. Like, it's a huge canvas, that book. You can attack it from a load of angles. It can be almost any type of, it can be a big sci-fi story, it can be a big fantasy story, it can be a proper straight down the line like Agatha Christie, which is kind of what I wrote. Do anything you want with it, so they should just mess around and have fun. And if they don't, I'll be cross.
After you bank the money, so it'll be fine. So you've also been on TV. I saw you without the beard on the Zoe Ball book club. That must have been fun. Tell us all about that.
Yeah, it was really good. I got to clamber around on a boat, which I quite like doing anyway. I should have had this beard for the experience. I'm devastated that I didn't. It was just really, really nice because Devil was coming out. The lockdown was beginning to, like, it wasn't like Eve where she got absolutely crushed in the middle of it. We were just getting to the point where they were saying it looks like we're going to start shutting shops and stuff, and I was like, oh, we're just going to get lost here, like, completely. And then BBC turned up and said, hey, by the way, we're making this book show. Do you want to be on it? And you're like, nah. No, I have philosophical objections to the BBC. Yes, of course I want to be on it. So, and then they took us out. They took each of the authors and they filmed different places, and I got to go on the Golden Hind in the middle of London, which was really lovely. And it was closed because they're the BBC. So they closed it, and they closed the Maritime Museum, and we had those places all to ourselves, and we filmed and shot on there, and it was just great. It was like being important for like half a day. It was really, really fun. And the cast and crew were just wicked. So yeah, it was really, really nice. But I didn't subsequently watch the show because I can't imagine anything worse than seeing myself on the television. But I've got a brilliant picture I put up. My daughter and my wife watched it and then couldn't understand why I had wanted no part of it and didn't even want to be in the house. So I took myself away, and then when I came back after it, and my wife showed me a picture, and my daughter, seeing me on television, had got so confused that she thought that her daddy, that I was actually the person I could respond to, that she was trying to feed me a strawberry through the television, and then was quite confused that I couldn't respond or wouldn't in fact take the strawberry. So when I got back to the house, was actually quite angry with me for not taking the strawberry that had been proffered. So in many ways, it kind of ruined my night.
Damn.
Yeah.
John Neal, again, he's back for more, wants to know, do you have a notepad or drawer full of half-formed ideas or discarded plans? And if so, what's the best one you haven't turned into a book yet? Eve?
Ooh. Oh yeah, no, I collect ideas absolutely all the time, and if I'm thinking, like, I often have my ideas on my dog walk, but because I've got the memory of a gnat. Unless I text myself, they'll be gone. So I've just got, if anybody ever nicks my phone and looks on this text to myself, they'll just think, wow, this woman has some serious psychological problems. So I've got this massive sort of stream of text, and then I've got like a little document. I shove them all in there, and then some of them make it out and some of them don't. So that's what I do. And so I guess what's the one I haven't? It's difficult, right? Because I'm still on. I'm just doing book number 2. So like a lot of ideas were around that, all around genetics, because that's kind of the big push for my next one. Very interested in that whole scene. So all kinds of extraordinary what ifs around gene editing going wrong. All right.
And that's the new book.
Yes, that is currently sitting in Karen's inbox. It's that slightly nervous moment where you think, oh shit, I hope this is going to be okay, and I'm not sure. I've done the first draft. It's set. So this one's world is set, again, another near future world, another cheery number, where basically sex is for recreation, not procreation. Pretty well, we've got major infertility problems. Pretty well everybody's having kids through IVF. And gene editing is allowed for specific situations. And my main character, Susan, is struggling to have a child with her husband. And she goes out one night and does something pretty reckless. And then she is confronted with a decision about what she should do next, and needless to say, it has fairly significant consequences. So I've had a lot of fun with this one on the research front.
Karen Sullivan would like you to know that it's not in her inbox. It's actually open on her computer right now. She's watching us, so she just wants you to know that.
Oh my God. Okay.
No pressure.
No pressure.
It's going to freak me out right now. As long as it hasn't hit the trash can.
I'll let you know if she comments anymore. Mike, what's...
I'm a massive cheapskate, so every February I buy a page-a-day diary, because by then the prices come down to like 99p. So I get these like 365-page notebooks for a quid, which I fill with gibberish, and I've got a huge stack of them downstairs. I think probably the best idea that I never went anywhere with was called Stormbirds, and it was about refugees from another dimension, they're from an ethnic group that's being sort of basically exterminated, and they're carried across into our world where they're placed as cuckoos in ordinary families, and they have their minds wiped, so they don't know who they used to be, and the families have their memories altered, so they think that these kids have always been. But then an assassin comes through from the other dimension to track them down, and there's one sort of guardian angel with each group who gets to remember as soon as anybody dies, as soon as one of the group dies. So she remembers suddenly, shit, there's something I have to do, and it was her story, how she sort of turns the situation around. I tried to do it as a novel, tried to do it as a comic, can't make it stick.
What is about it that's so tough, if you don't mind me asking?
I don't know. I think probably there've been lots of things like it now.
Right.
When I first started pitching it, it felt sort of quite fresh, and now it feels a bit like Travelers, and a bit like there's a whole load of Netflix movies sort of like that, Refugees from Other Times or from Other Worlds, or I guess it's that. I guess it had its moment, but I just didn't fit it in.
Stu? Notepads? Do you keep a lot of ideas anywhere?
No, I just write the ideas that I have. Like I'm a trained journalist, so like you don't. And I was a trained freelance journalist who are like, you have an idea and you sell that bastard to 40 people because that's how you make your money. So I don't write any words that I'm not going to sell. That's basically how I operate. So if I have an idea for something, I pitch it, and that's my next book. And then when I finish writing that one, I'll have another idea and I'll write that. So it's very sort of, for me, I've still got that journalist mindset about this. Like I don't, like Mike's situation, all I would see would be like, right, okay, that was like a year and a half of my time I didn't get paid for. This is pointless. Like I can't ever do that again. this would be hell. So that would just beat me up endlessly. So no, I just have an idea and I write the hell out of it.
Well, Emma would like you to write a book about shotgun goats because she would certainly read it, apparently.
You don't have to have but you just go to Australia and get the job. Like it's seasonal work. You go to Darwin, you go into an employment agency, and it will be on a board. You can also get a job as a pearl diver up there in Broome, and that's when they take you out on a boat every day, and you dive down and you get the pearls from the pearl farm, and you spend all day just diving down, picking up pearls, and going back up to the ship. Do not get the job as the pearl scrubber because that's the worst job in the world. You stay on the deck and you scrub the dirt off the pearls all day, and it's freezing water, and your hands get chipped, and it's just terrible. Be the diver. That's my recommendation.
Great. And Shari Miller has just said, thanks, Eve. She's just bought The Waiting Room. She can't wait to read it.
Thank you very much, Shari.
Right, let's talk about, Stu, we haven't really spoken much about your new book, which I can't even remember what it's called because I haven't got my notes with me. Devil
in That Water.
Tell me about it. It's nothing like Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo's Hardcastle either, is it?
No, neither is the Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo Hardcastle is anything like anything else. No, it's The Devil in That Water is set in 1634. I hate this voice that happens to me. You guys must get this, right? When you go into tell me about your book, so you do your elevator pitch for your book, and you just become dead a little bit because you've done it so many times, and you just autopilot. And I'm trying to put some life into it, but I'm struggling. So in 1634, so forgive me, 1634, merchant ship is leaving from Jakarta, and it's going to Amsterdam. All these people get on, all these passengers, and as they're about to set sail, this leper turns up, curses the ship, bursts into flame and dies. And then it turns out there may be a demon on board. So thankfully, the world's greatest detective is on board to sort this out. Unfortunately, he's in chains. He's been arrested, he's committed a crime, he's going to be executed when he gets back to Amsterdam, but nobody knows what he's done, including his loyal sidekick, Aaron. And it's up to Aaron to sort of solve this mystery in his stead. And he may be looking for a demon. It may be genuinely. So it's written like a horror novel. It's written with all the tropey stuff of a horror novel, but it's a Sherlock Holmes mystery. So it's a locked boat mystery. And the entire setup, the gift for the novel was that there's three things on the novel. There's three impossible things. There's an impossible theft, so I get to do that locked room. Something gets stolen from a locked room. There is a ghost ship chasing them, which is a bit creepy. So that's the impossible pursuit. And then there's an impossible murder, which again is a locked room murder that happens on a boat surrounded by people. So they've got to solve this out and work out whether there's a demon behind it or not. And it's just fun. It's just the anti-Seven Deaths is what it is. Because the last thing you ever want to do if you write Seven Deaths is be the person who has to go and do it again. As I alluded to earlier, I didn't want to be the 8 deaths guy. I don't want to be the 9 deaths guy, which is what some people wanted me to be. So I just picked something else completely different and went in a completely different direction, and it was great.
Do you think you'll do a series? Sorry, I'm jumping in now. I'm not supposed to do that, Tracy. Do you think you would ever do a series, Stu?
No, mate. No. I discover the characters while I'm writing them, and it's part of the joy for me. And then because I do find writing to be quite a difficult thing to do, in terms of convincing myself to sit down at the computer, that act of discovering the characters is the fun for me, and sort of putting them in peril and finding out what they'll do and just all that good stuff. So if I had to write a series, I'm going back to the same characters, I would take away a lot of the joy for myself. I would just the thing that's getting me to sit down. So I don't think I'll ever be able to do it. I don't think I'm capable of it. And also I'm old. I'm so old now. I'm just so
You're
so
not
defeated.
old. Your beard is old. You're not old.
The soul, Tracy, inside is withered.
There's
and old.
no soul. I've met you.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
Soulless.
And so I've got to do. I just want to keep doing new books in different places and give myself the chance to go to somewhere exotic and research it in that place and do all that sort of stuff. So if I go back to something, I don't have any excuse to go to a new place traveling. Basically, that's my theory.
Bloody hell, you've got a lot of reviews, Stu.
They're all my mum. So,
well,
really.
I have to say, they may all be your mum, but they're also all of Karen Sullivan's family. because Karen has said that she's read your books. Hold on, she's read all the. Where's it gone? She's read Evelyn when it came out. Awesome, and then hang on, my message. And then she said that it's currently your latest is currently going through the entire family.
That sounds like they've got devil diarrhea. It sounds like they've eaten the book and they're currently pooing it out. Which again, as long as they bought it first, I don't mind.
Exactly.
What people do with it.
I've never seen. Right, I just want to have a quick look at your. So, do you read all your reviews?
No.
You're not interested at all?
I was for Seven Deaths. I was hugely interested, and I massively cared, and I went and sought out even the bad ones, which was just, again, and it was fun. Like, I was a journalist. Everybody below the line is always calling you a C word, so it doesn't really bother me. And then what did start to happen slightly was I got the voices in, like, people, if a lot of people were saying, well, I like that about his novel, I was like, well, a little bit in my head was like, well, I should make sure to do that again. Or if I don't like what he's done there, I'd be like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do that. So I was like, I don't want that. That's not what I'm doing this for. So I don't read reviews anymore because it does creep into my head a little bit, and I just want to be telling my stories.
Yeah,
so myself.
You wouldn't be interested in M. Darcy's 1-star review of your latest book?
Oh, as long as it's hysterical.
Well, it's time he'll never get back. It's how he's actually. And he thought Dan Brown's novels were appalling until he read this. I think that's a really good one, actually.
I don't think it's as good. No, the best 1-star I ever had was somebody because you know the thing online is about, like, if it's a good review, they tag you, and if it's not a good review, they don't tag you. I've been tagged, and it was a very early review for Seven Deaths. And I sought it out, clicked on it, very excited as a debut author, and I clicked on it, and they created the blog post for it, and it just simply said turgid. It was the only word on the page. That was it. Nothing else. Turgid, and then some meta links. And an Amazon link where they could go and buy this turgid book. It was just fantastic. Oh. So I feel like I've peaked on 1-star reviews, to be honest.
Well, I don't know, because Marie Burstow only gave you 1 star because, and this is serious, it arrived fast, but not carefully enough. It was damaged, so it went back. 1 star.
Oh my
God. I think she's confusing the postal service with your ability to write.
Oh, that's all right. Like, as long as she, I don't want her to have a damaged book.
The word bilge. Now, I don't use that in my reviews, but it's been used quite openly here for you. You could just call your new book The 8 Bilges of Someone.
Well, to be fair, there is a bilge on the ship, so they're probably just referring to the bilge on the ship. That's what I imagine is happening there.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I mean, listen, any reviews, as long as, if people are talking about your book, surely it's a good thing. However, obviously we would prefer good reviews. Could I just remind my bloggers who are currently on the blog tour for book 3, The Fall of Coley, to get your reviews onto Amazon now, because we're only looking at 2. So come on guys, get your reviews copied across. Now I want to talk to you, Mike, about someone like me. Now, obviously I said to you before that I have read and loved The Girl with All the Gifts. I started listening to Fellside, but I didn't like the narrator, so I stopped, but I have still got it. But I did read. Now, those books are very dystopian, sort of more fantasy, aren't they, really? You would claim? Well, zombie apocalypse.
Fellside is a ghost story, sort of.
All right, ghost. But someone like me is probably more in line with the book club readers, because it's a thriller with a kind of a supernatural edging. It's brilliant. It's what we would call in the trade sort of a head fuck, really, isn't it?
Oh, thank you. It's meant to fake you out, because from one point of view, it could just be about a woman who's having a mental breakdown, or she could be possessed by something, or there could be some kind of weird science fictional mechanism going on. A bit like Devil in Dark Water, really, that you're not sure for an awful lot of the time what genre you're reading in, because it plays with the furniture, moves the furniture around in a really entertaining way. So I think you do something like that, really.
Well, so if anyone is interested, I would 100% recommend this one. It's not a new book. You've written, I think, 3 since then. So, but it's absolutely brilliant. Now, what have you got coming up next? Because I'm presuming you've got another book coming up soon, Mike.
I'm writing a novel about a dimension traveling rabbit.
So, a dimension traveling rabbit.
She's not really a rabbit. She's descended from rabbits in the same way that we're descended from.
Oh, okay. That makes far more sense then.
Which means that she has incredible musculature in her legs. She can run as fast as a car, more or less, the short bursts, and she can also kill you with a kick, which she does quite early on in the story. So it's about this rabbit ending up on our world and not knowing what the hell is going on, and not knowing why a lot of people are trying to kill her.
So can I just interject and say that was like the most on-brand Mike answer that we could possibly have got. It's wonderful. Thank you very much. I love, like, whenever I hear Mike talk, it always makes me laugh. And then whenever someone says, "What's your next book about?" I'm always like, "That sounds fucking fantastic." Every time. Wonderful.
Right, I'm just going to hang on. Right, hold on. All right, now I'm trying to look at the bloody questions.
Every time she says my name, she sighs immediately after it. I'm getting complex.
Sorry, right. John Neal says, it's on my shelf waiting for me to read. Need to get The Seven Husbands of Evelyn. Yes, you do.
Oh, yeah.
It's Evelyn Hargreaves, not Evelyn Hubbard. Hold on. Stu. Okay. Dave Graham wants to know, how did your agent stroke publisher react when you went from 7 deaths to 1634 on a boat?
Fine. Yeah, they knew what I was doing. Like they asked me what the second book was likely going to be about. I should stress this immediately. They weren't the ones who were disappointed that I wasn't writing a sequel to Seven Deaths or a prequel or whatever it is people wanted. That was just people. They were perfectly happy for me to go and do what I wanted, and just be engaged and interested in the writing. So yeah, they were absolutely. I don't remember anybody saying anything about it apart from "off you go then." The only time they got slightly, I'm not even annoyed, but they just were like, I missed 5 deadlines on Devil, which is a lot. I missed 1, it's slightly reckless. You missed 2, it's getting a bit careless. By the time you get to 5, because the book was supposed to come out like last summer or something, and it ended up coming out in October or something. So yeah, that was. I remember Harry just being like, "Hi Stu, at this point you probably need to liaise directly with the publisher about the deadline because I just keep lying to them," which was a fair enough complaint, I think. So, but otherwise, in terms of the content and what I was writing, they didn't mind. They were fine.
Do you all read much? I'm presuming most authors do read. Eve, is there anything?
I hate books.
Oh no, you got to read. I think that's how you learn. I love
anything you're reading at the moment you can recommend to us.
Well, as I said to you, I've just started Louise Beach's "This Is How We Are Human," which was amazing, and I would recommend Sarah Saltoun's "The Source," which is an amazing book, a fictional account of abuse in the armed forces, and she was a journalist as well, and it is a really moving and pretty harrowing read, based on real life events, obviously dramatized. So I'd really recommend that. I think that's out now or about to come out in paperback. It's certainly out in ebook.
Just aforementioned, as I said with Mike, that was the most on-brand Eve answer. So now we're totally across the board.
Are we there?
On-branding our answers.
Was
yeah,
that
I think
good?
we've got it.
Oh,
yeah, that was
good.
good. I
didn't think I had a thing.
Heart-wrenching, soul-destroying, painfully contemporary. That's Eve. It's great. It's wonderful.
I'm just going to have to throw in a fuck of a rabbit or something like that just to keep it interesting.
No, it was very interesting. I'm very excited. I've just written down the books for myself, but I just, It's like nice to know what I'm going to get. When I'm in that mood, I'm just going to find you, seek out Eve and be like, Eve, what should I be reading right now? Thank you.
Mike, do you read much yourself? Get asked to sort of read other people's books as well?
I read a lot. Yeah, I read a lot of genre stuff. I agree with Eve. I think if you're not reading in the genre and the media that you write in, then you shouldn't be writing. So you've got to be a fan, I think. The one thing I read that really totally blew me away was The Space Between Worlds by Micaiah Johnson,
Mm.
which is it's a debut novel, and it is incredible.
Tell me that title again.
The Space Between Worlds.
The Space Between Worlds. Okay, just going on to Amazon as we speak. Go on.
Micaiah Johnson. It's about a woman who actually travels between dimensions. There's a lot of it about. She works for a corporation that has sort of mastered dimensional travel. She goes to adjacent worlds to measure sort of demographics and trends, basically to sort of so that they can steal a march on their competitors in World Zero. But the thing is, you can only travel to worlds where your alternate self has died. You can't travel to a world where you're still alive. So there's a huge market for people who've lived terrifyingly precarious and impoverished lives because they will have died on a lot of parallel worlds. So they basically find people from war zones or people who've escaped from sub-Saharan Africa. And the main character is sent to a world where she's meant to have just been murdered, and she gets involved with the person who murdered her in a really surprising way. It just keeps on faking you out. It's a brilliant book.
Okay, well, quite a few people have commented. Well, someone else has commented she's heard so much about it. So that's The Space Between Worlds, and it's currently only $3.99 on Kindle. Everyone, if anyone's interested.
Cheaper.
Stu?
I second that. That's a really great book. I read that. Is that Harry's client as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's our agent's client as well. So I got that. Sadly, it's like you get these books for a proof and you're supposed to say something about them. And I was dying trying to finish Devil, so I never got around to saying anything about it, which is the same as Eve, unfortunately.
Sorry, I haven't held it against you for that long, Stu.
I would seek me out and destroy me.
Well, I will if we ever get out of lockdown.
But so Eve's book, while I'm here, fantastic book. I've just finished, truly great book, really great. I finished that recently. I finished that Space Between Worlds recently. I finished David Niven's The Moon's a Balloon. I tend to try and read 3 or 4 books simultaneously because I like to move around genres and move around books.
Yeah,
so
I do too.
The Moon's a Balloon, yeah, it's really good because it's just like you see
Keeps it fresh.
Yeah. So that David Niven's The Moon a Balloon, I really like that. The Dutch House by Anne Patchett, I just finished that, and that was sensationally good. And what's the other thing I'm reading at the moment? Oh, The Terror, because I saw the adaptation on the BBC, which looked very good. So I thought I'd read the book first, and then I can say that the adaptation's either crap or brilliant, depending on what it is.
Emma Wilson, Mike, just wants to say a massive thank you for the video you sent for her daughter's birthday last year. I don't know if you remember, I contacted a few people, asked because she was in lockdown and she was having a crappy birthday in Spain. They were meant to come back to be relocated in the UK, and she was stuck in Spain. I think she was 11 or something. And she's a massive author, she wants to be an author. Anyway, she says she still talks about it, and you are one of the only names that really give her kudos with her friends at school.
Oh,
Isn't that lovely? Isn't that lovely? Right, I didn't even know the time, guys. We've been chatting, and it's 10 past, so I'm going to let you all go now. Well, I'm going to say goodbye to everyone. But first, I just want to say thank you so much. So, Eve, I look forward to reading your book next.
Thank you. Off target. Oh, well, unless Karen doesn't like it. Off target.
Well, no, I'm going to read the rating rooms first, and then I'll read the next one next.
Oh, that one. Okay.
Yeah. Mike, as ever, thank you so much for joining. And Stu, I look forward to pictures of the after the barbers.
It'll be a travesty. There'll be no pictures of it. I'm going dark the moment that happens.
You could donate
that. Give it to charity.
This is all in service of a bank robbery that I'm going to commit. So I'll just walk in with the beard, rob the bank, come out, get a shave.
That's such a good idea.
Thank you.
I probably Netflix about that.
I probably shouldn't have mentioned it on a video chat, but I think I still think it's going to work. I'm feeling good about it.
Right, if you just bear with me 1 minute, because I'm just going to say goodbye to everyone at the book club. Thank you very much, everyone, for your lovely questions, and have a lovely evening.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.